This will be explained by Peter Desilets. Lots of fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Happy New Year to everyone. It's not so long ago. My name is Peter Desilets. Thanks for the introduction. We are packaging experts, and we are also dealing with new regulations and regulations concerning packaging. So may I ask first, who of you has to deal with packaging? Nobody here? There's someone dealing with packaging. If you have any kind of spare parts, any kind of material you're shipping, everyone is concerned. The only packaging which is not concerned are, for example, sea containers, rail, air or rail and truck containers, so road containers. Anything else is regarded and concerned by the PPWR. So whenever you are doing business on the EU market, whether you're within the EU or coming from outside the EU, especially also from Asia, you have to be compliant with the PPWR, and we have some real high level of requirements. And I will show you how these requirements will also concern your packaging and how you have to be aware and how you can handle the compliance. So we are packaging experts. We are doing packaging for over 20 years, and we're doing sustainable packaging since 2008. We're probably the leading experts in Europe, and therefore also definitely around the world among the top companies and experts. We are coming from packaging design, so we're always dealing with packaging, and since 2008 we're dealing with sustainability in packaging. And so therefore we have about 20 people inside our company, and then 7 people working in the packaging sustainability. We are doing 3 kinds of services. First of all is know-how, so we are doing trainings and workshops and regulation monitoring like the PPWR and any other regulation like DV in the automotive and electronic sector, but we are definitely more concerning about the packaging itself. And we are also doing packaging consultancy and helping companies to understand and to look for new ways how to fulfill sustainable approaches. This leads us to the second pillar, which is conception. So we are building in 2D or 3D different kinds of packaging which complies with the various regulations or which allows you to shift maybe from one type of packaging or one material to the other. And so we are also doing conception, and we are also working on AI-based software to optimize packaging, whether it's optimizing the wall thickness of any rigid packaging or whether it's the top load to improve. So we are also working on the conception. And the third one, which is also very important for PPWR this year, is that you have to be aware of the labeling of your packaging. So you have to have the right label, the right information on it. You have to have your address on it, and direct address. And also this has to be fulfilled by August this year. And in fact, if you're not compliant with the legislation, you will not be allowed to bring this packaging onto the market in the EU. So this could even lead to a ban. If you're not compliant with the legislation, it can lead to a ban. And therefore, it's very important to be in time and to prepare all your packaging before you come to the market. And it does mean in August 26, so this year, in about 8 months, the 12th of August, in fact, you have not only to have a declaration about your conformity, your compliance, your conformity, but the packaging you bring on the market has to be compliant as well. So it's not always only saying, I do it, you have to have it. So here we also have in September this year, so just 1 month later, we're talking about green claims. And we have an European-wide legislation which is implemented in each country, where you have to respect green claims and you have to prove that the claims you're having on your packaging or you're claiming on your website or even in communication wheresoever is not against the green claims which are set. So either you have a science-based information you can prove or you have a certificate. I will come to that later on. So there's a lot of labeling and we see a lot of new regulation, not only in the EU but also worldwide, and we see that the EU and the PPWR is a role model for many regions all over the world. For example, we have in food or in contact-sensitive packaging, we have new standards set up by the EU, and we see whether it's Mercosur, whether it's North America, Canada, US, whether it's Asia, China, Japan, everyone has its new regulation concerning contact material with food and hazardous substances in the packaging. So the world is coming more and more demanding in packaging, and so therefore what we see in PPWR in Europe we will see more and more in the other countries and regions all over the world. So you're not only preparing for the EU, you're probably preparing for the world. We also have guidelines where we show what the requirements are, what the details behind the requirements are, what the timelines are, and we offer a free guideline you can download and you can go on our website and the landing page or send us an email and then you can download the guideline for free, which gives you the most information, an overview about this new legislation. So we will have what is your role. There's no pointer, I think. But here you see on the right, you see what is your role, because the role is also important for your conformity declaration. We are talking about the deadlines and the timelines when different kinds of requirements are in place. We have it in different languages like English, French, Portuguese, Italian, and so on, German, of course. We also have some information about what the conformity declaration means and what is to be implemented and so on. So if you like, you can download for free, go on our website or send us an email. For us, it was also a topic to say, okay, how do we want to bring this legislation to the companies? And I mean, we're here with automotive, a lot of automotive, and I always compare it with your driving license. And for us, it was a topic last year, or 2 years ago now, when we were working for a big US soft drink producer, and we went through the whole transport packaging, and we were analyzing the transport packaging. And though we went into the guideline, we went into the legislation, and we read it a couple of times, to find out what we have to do and are there any exemptions or what are the requirements. And then we said, okay, this is not something you want to do for every kind of packaging. So we invented a web tool I will show you a bit later. And for us, the comparison is that when you have your driving license, you're not learning paragraphs. You're not reading and learning paragraphs, but you learn how to behave in various situations. And this is exactly what we did with our tool. We want to help you to understand how do you and your packaging has to behave in various situations. So, and we call it scenarios. Because the packaging is not only that you test one packaging or one packaging type, you have to test it in various situations sometimes, especially in transport packaging. And I guess most of the companies here, they have any kind of transport packaging, whether it's little spare parts or OEM parts or some merchandising for your customers. You're probably all concerned by packaging. And so you can test every kind of packaging, excluding some very little exceptions, with our web tool. And understand how this packaging has to behave or it has to be designed to comply with the legislation. So first of all, we defined 4 different categories where we found that each category has the same requirements. And this is very important to understand, for example, sales packaging, anything which is on the shelf, whether it's on the wholesaler shelf or whether it's on the retailer shelf whatsoever. So this is about sales packaging. Then we have transport packaging, which is more like the bulk transport. Whether it's, as I said, some spare parts or you have anything in barrels, canisters, any kind in IBC, cardboards on pallets, stretch foil, and so on. So this is all concerned packaging. It all has to be compliant, and each individual component has to be compliant in different ways. Then we have the beverages. I guess this is not so much the topic here in this trade fair. And we have the HoReCa, the hotel, restaurant, catering sector, which I guess is also not so much relevant. But these are the 4 categories we identified. So I would say the most relevant for you here in this trade fair is the sales packaging and the transport packaging. And then it's very important to identify the various situations or scenarios, as I said, so because it might be that one packaging is allowed under one condition and one scenario, but it's forbidden under a different scenario. Or you have to look and see, are you transporting a product from one member state of the EU to another one or within the same member state? And it can have completely different requirements. And for transport packaging, we often have requirements for reusable packaging. So you probably have to find ways how to make your packaging reusable. And this also means that you have to look around about the system behind it. So we have to identify the scenarios, and that's how we developed the web tool, and where you can easily go into. In 2 minutes latest, you will have the identification of your requirements regarding the PPWR. And there's a web tool. You can also go in here, ppwrcheck.com. You get a link to the web tool, and you can also do 2 demo trials, 2 demo checks for free to see how it works. This week, we will also launch the new version where we have 10 languages, from Chinese, Hindi, Turkish, Arabic, German, English, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. And the next days we will also have Japanese. So we want to make sure that the companies and people around the world are able to identify what they have to do for the PPWR. And you have to identify very quickly. So you can also do checks and see how it works, or of course we can also do any kind of introduction. So this is a short video which explains a bit how we want to get from the identification of your requirements to the conformity report. You will have to deliver from August this year until latest 2030. So from 2030, all main requirements have to be matched. And one part is also to have a conformity declaration. And I want to show you how we proceed to deliver such a conformity declaration, which many companies don't even know how it looks like. So, short video here, we can do checks. We can do checks step by step, where we answer a few questions: which country, what kind of product, what is the packaging type and name, any kind of article number for the packaging. Minimization is a requirement where you have to reduce the packaging, what kind of category, what kind of material, what are the main components and portions of this packaging, and whether it's, for example, a bundling packaging, or whether we have food contact, or whether it is protected by patents and so on. And so by clicking through this requirement, then you will receive the answer, what you have to fulfill. and then you find it also in the dashboard. And the other approach is that you can download Excel templates, which you then can fill in or ask your suppliers to fill in with the same questions. And then once you filled them in and you transformed this file, for example, to a CSV file to upload it, then this will be uploaded and checked at once, and then you get all the results in the tool itself. And then when you go back in and say, I want to upload this file for sales packaging, and then you select the file. And here we have 5 chocolate types, and then you upload it, and then it will be uploaded and processed. So finally you will get immediately the 5 types of packaging you checked, and you get the results, what you have to do. After that, you can also do a report, so you can check what you have in your portfolio and what you have checked, and then you get the results, what you have to fulfill. And you can enter all the necessary data and the GTINs and the DUNS numbers and so on, which are concerned with the various packaging. And we will link this together with the data in a conformity report, which can then also be linked with all the necessary documents you have to fulfill. And then you can do a digital signing. So you have a digital conformity report, which you can deliver to the authorities if they come up and say, show me your declaration of conformity regarding certain packaging or your packaging portfolio. So this is something we are working on with a platform, a server platform, where we can link all this information. But the first step, as I've shown, is that you have to identify, first of all the packaging you have and the situation and the scenario in which you are using this packaging. And afterwards, then for August this year, you have to at least make a conformity declaration about hazardous substances in the packaging. So for any kind of packaging besides dangerous goods, any kind of packaging has limits of hazardous substances. This can be cadmium, mercury, hexafluorochrome. So you have to at least to state this, the hazardous substances in the packaging are conform and are under this limit. And the other thing is that you have to check all your labeling and declaration. And therefore we also have, probably you don't see it from that side, but you also can link the declaration with all the artworks, whether it's a label you put on your packaging, whether it's the cardboard or the folding box around your product. You have to make sure that you have matched all the necessary requirements for the labeling. And then we can link this, and later on, over the next years, you will have to check the recyclability of the packaging. You will have to check whether your recycled content of plastic matches the requirement. You will also have sometimes to check whether you have matched the minimization criteria of wall thickness, material volume, and size. And probably you have to attach also technical documentation, how you achieved it. Or if you cannot achieve and you say, I want to be exempt, then you have to prove that you tried everything necessary to achieve it and why you did not achieve it. So you really have to match the requirements, or to say, why didn't you match the requirements? And you have to show that you really tried to match them. So there are lots of documentation here. The laboratory analysis for your hazardous substances in your packaging you have to fulfill and deliver one day, and everything should be in a digital version offered to the authorities when they come up and say, I want to have your conformity declaration about each packaging. And as I said, remember, if you're not compliant, you can be banned from the EU market. And this means you're losing your business. So this is not just a little regulation joke. It's really, we are talking about your business. We are talking about your company. So we also have this tutorial on our YouTube website where you can go and have a check. We have some other tutorial videos on our YouTube site as well, where we want to inform the companies and the countries. We're also talking to associations, because many of the companies worldwide don't even know what's going on at the moment. So just to remember the steps, first of all, identification of your packaging. And often we go to companies and then we go into their warehouses or their production and we check each individual packaging we see. And often they forget some packaging. And then we go through and say, okay, here's a material. How is it used? Is it used in different ways or different scenarios for different products? As I said, if it comes to chemicals, hazardous goods, you have very little requirements. If you use the same container for normal standard or any kind of raw material or granulates or whatsoever, then you have total different scenarios, and you have to identify these scenarios and to know what you were talking about. The second one, you get the report. What are, for each individual scenario, what are your requirements? And you will fill in where you are with recyclability, hazardous substances, do you have any ban, do you have the recycled material? So this you will check over the years, but you should prepare, because it will not be enough to do it in 29. You will find probably big obstacles in getting recycled content, or you probably have to find a new material when you're not achieving the recyclability criteria. So if you have then your status quo and you get your heat map where you see green is fine, red is alarm, and orange you should check or you should work on. And with this data, and together with your manufacturer data and your individual product numbers and artworks, etc., as I said, okay, this is one too early. I wanted to mention as well, as I already said, we can also deliver the Excel templates, which you can send to your OEM manufacturers to collect the data which you don't have. So they can fill in the data and then you can make the checks. And so the next steps would be then to gather the data, to link it with your reports, attach the certificates, and this will be on our new platform soon. And then you get also the conformity report from our checks, and all this together leads you to the conformity declaration. So there's a lot of things to do, a lot of information, and therefore we always say you shouldn't start too late. And these are the deadlines I mentioned. So first of all, we have the PPWR. I start with the second one, which is into force last year, beginning of last year, and you will have to have the first conformity report by 12th August this year for hazardous substances and for the correct labeling. So this is the first deadline, and the second one, as I mentioned also before, is the empowering consumers to the green transition, also so-called EMCO. And this EMCO is about green claims and claiming, and not only on packaging, it's all about all communication. As I said, it's your website, it's your advertisement, it's any kind of flyer, it's anything. It's not only against or for private consumers, is also for your B2B customers. So if you're claiming here we are nice and sustainable and green, this is definitely not allowed anymore. You should have to prove why you are in some way maybe having less CO2. And you have to prove it. And you have to prove it scientifically. And you have to have someone who is checking that your results are correct. So you will have high level of requirement to prove all your green claims. And this will lead to the fact that you have to rework all your communication, not only on packaging, but also everything which goes on air, social media, whatsoever. And it's also mentioned that you have to be able to communicate also to people, deaf people who don't listen, who can't hear, or to blind people. So you probably have also to say what you're saying. So there are lots of requirements here as well, and you will have to check all your declaration and all your communication. So for packaging, which is our main business, anything is on the packaging, whether you're writing we are green, we are healthy, we are whatsoever, you will have to check. And the other one is you have to have the main information on your labels and on your packaging, like the manufacturer address and contact details for someone who wants to ask you something about the packaging. And the requirements, they will come over the years, and you will have to have more details on your packaging and also on transport packaging. Not the same as for sales packaging for consumers, but also you have to mention the most relevant details on your transport packaging. And whether it's just a label on your pallet or it's a label on your reusable packaging, you have to have it. So what are we going to do is digitalization of the data. So you can work with this data, and we try to also get them into the in a digital way on a platform. And we were also preparing for digital product pass, which is mandatory for every kind of packaging and product by 2030. We have it already for the WE products, for the batteries. We will have it for textiles very soon. We will have it for packaging as well. So we want to have the digital data to understand what kind of packaging do we have and how do we have to handle it. And we also have, for example, an NDA with SAP, and we will do with other ERP systems. So we want to make sure that this data also goes up into your ERP system, so you can work with the data in your own in-house ERP databases. And we will also work on the conformity declarations with other regulation, as you see here, for example, EUDR, deforestation regulation, all national laws for packaging, so that you can check your packaging via multiple legislation and countries or the entire EU. We are also working together with other consultants where we can check the requirements. For example, if you're exporting to the US market, you have today 12 different states which have a packaging act. So you probably want to know, is your packaging compliant with these packaging acts in these 12 US markets? Or the same for Canada or UK or whatsoever. So this is how we are supporting. We're having the tool and an introductory webinar. Here you see the license fees when it comes to 50 up to unlimited packaging you want to check. We're also doing workshops where we go into the company, we check all the packaging, we identify how they're used, which are the scenarios they're used. Did we respect all the different kinds of packaging? The latest is also if companies come up and say, I'm looking for an alternative to specific packaging, so we help them to discover which could be an alternative and how this could be implemented into your production and warehousing. So there are different ways how we support, and also here, of course, we are limited people. We have far more than 1 million companies worldwide who have to deal with the EU PPWR for the European market. And we will definitely not be able to do all the business ourselves. And also here we say the earlier you start, the easier it will be. And just to give you a nice overview, there are a couple of other regulations only in the EU. Sometimes it's a national regulation, sometimes it's EU regulation. And here we are not talking about regulation in UK, US, Canada, or other markets worldwide. So sometimes it's not only checking one regulation, but you should also check sometimes the regulation in the country you're exporting to. And so we do this as a service as well to help to understand how you have to design your packaging. So just to give you an idea how you can respond to some parts, to some requests in your packaging, just a few ideas we did over the last years. For example, for recycled content for plastic, there's already now they say we will have too little amount of recycled material to mix up with virgin material of plastic. So one option might even be to go on to bio-based PE, bio-based PP. So this is only concerning plastic. But this might be a solution to shift to non-virgin material or to recycled content, but it's not safe. It's not sure if the EU will allow this one. But I think this will be one way to reduce CO2, to reduce fossil resources, and to become compliant. And sometimes we hear no food for packaging, so no agricultural landscape for packaging, but just to give an idea of how much material currently is used for packaging of all the entire landscape we see here. This is so little that you will not see it here on this graph. So there's a high potential, and we also use a lot more. If you're talking about automotive, we are using 100 to 200 times more for bioenergy or for your car than we're using for bioplastics and for packaging. So just to compare, and therefore I think it would be a good option also for the EU to shift from bioenergy to packaging, which you can burn anyway at the end if you like, and regain energy. And just another figure is this orange one is the agricultural landscape we are using for bioplastics. And on the right you see the agricultural landscape we are using in Germany for food waste every year, only Germany. So talking about agricultural landscape for packaging, there is not such a big deal to use it for packaging first and then to transform it into recycled material or any kind of bioenergy or energy. The other one is paperization. You probably heard as well. Often you want to go from plastic and foil to paper. Paper can be different kinds of fiber-based. Although it's called paperization, it's more like fiberization because it's much more than just paper and cardboard. For example, we often see already materials which are filling your transport packaging, either in e-commerce or even here, if you're sending out spare parts, it can be fiber-based. We have some in-molded versions like industrial ink on the right, which replaces an HDPE bottle with the inner layer coating. On the right bottom, you see a drink, a beverage bottle in fiber with an inside coating. And this is probably one of the most spectacular ones which has been announced for years, but it's never come on the market because it's not so easy is to bring beer or other drinks into a fiber bottle, and often it was a mix between plastic and fiber, but we see new developments where we can replace the plastic as well. So fiber is coming. It's still not the perfect solution, but it's a very good solution, especially if you go into countries where you have no recycling infrastructure or no collection, and packaging often ends up in nature. Then at least you can have packaging which can be biodegradable in sea or water or whatsoever on land. We also had a couple of projects with molded fiber, and molded fiber is also a topic which could be interesting for small parts, spare parts, whatsoever, especially if you go into OEM and merchandising articles which can replace plastic. For example, if you have today a blister, a PET blister, and you're having it on the shelf or you're sending it out, PET blister today is not regarded as recyclable. If you're talking about PET bottle, this is recyclable, but if you're talking about a PET blister, today is not concerned as recyclable. So if you're not matching 70–80% with the PPWR, this is a no-way route. So often, therefore, we find some molded fiber packaging like we did here for tool, accessory tools for craftsmen, or we did some folding boxes, or here we see coffee bowls with an inner coating. Here we packed a vacuum cleaner from polystyrol to fiber molded packaging, or in this way below, it was a coffee machine we packed from polystyrol into cardboard mix with other fibers like jute fibers together with some material to replace the polystyrol. Also interesting, what we investigated in, we often have for a lot of consumer goods parts, some electronic parts, we have a foil just to protect the surface. And often they say it's anti-scratch protection. And then we often made some experiences with either fiber-based, paper-based, or different kind of tissues. And so last year we made an investigation and study, and we checked various kinds of packaging materials. And we started with the current one, like an LDPE foil, just to cover the product and to protect it from scratches. And then you see anything which is in the green and probably the light green, yellow. These are different materials which are not plastic. And then we checked how they behave for anti-scratch. So we found quite a lot of material which was good enough to do the protection. We see here 2 paper samples. Both were much better than the original LDPE, and one was even a very good one. And this was also under very severe conditions. So usually you have some transport conditions you're checking, and we increased this condition by about 20 times. So 20 times longer and 20 times more movements, and we still got very good results here. So this can also be very interesting if you want to say, I want to replace my plastic, I want to go to another material. There are materials on the market available, but of course you have to check whether it helps for your packaging. And some of them, there are even textiles, but probably either synthetic textiles or viscose is a wooden-based textile. And then the question here was also, is it an interesting topic to have a reusable hood? So something you're delivering to someone to protect the surface, to collect it again, send it back, and then use it again. It could also be a possible route. It would cost more than the foil, but it could be used multiple times, and it would save you definitely CO2 and also disposal fees. And we even had one sample with a company from Sweden. They are reusing sheets from the bed sheets from the hotels and cutting special tissues, and even these samples were better than the LDPE foil. So there are lots of ways to shift from plastic foil to any kind of other material and to increase sustainability in the material, or even go into marketing aspects saying, do I have a hood protecting the surface which transforms to a shopping bag or whatsoever. So with your brand on it, and do some merchandising. You know all these bags running around in the streets, whether it's fashion or whether it's luxury, and it could also be marketing for your own brand. Or here, for example, with a CF, the big company in Germany with the OEM parts and all the automobile parts. We developed fiber molded packaging. We transformed from plastic to paludi, which is a natural fiber which is growing in the moors and which has to be harvested. So we transformed it into a packaging for the wheels of the cars, and we also have some other materials, whether it's sugarcane or bagasse or bamboo, which is often used in Asia already, or sylphy is a new plant which we can use for fiber-based packaging. So there are lots of new ways. It doesn't have to be wood, and often this agricultural residue packaging material is often around 40 to 50% CO2 lower than wood fiber. So you can also play on your CO2 targets if you want to achieve certain zero CO2 or how many percent less CO2 over the years. This can also be something which contributes. Then we have something which even contributes more than single-use packaging. We see a lot of reusable packaging in the market. Here we have a lot of examples on the consumer side, but we also see it on the B2B side, like here, for example, at this corner. I recognize that this the company I worked for 35 years ago, where I did my first training with reusable packaging, and I will show you an example as well. But usually, depending on the packaging and the product you're using and the loops you're using it, usually after 10 to 20 times, 10 to 20 loops, your CO2 is much better than any kind of single use, and your cost is definitely often lower than single use. So I know that the automobile industry is very good in reusing packaging, especially if it goes from one plant to the other, but often it's still a lot of single use, and it can be shifted to reusable packaging. And this leads me to one specific topic. As I mentioned, transport packaging is something which is often overseen. And people look at the shelf and they say, yeah, this packaging has to be compliant, but you probably all have transport packaging here, which has also be compliant. And I want to show you how we can probably shift them and help you to become compliant as well, because in transport packaging, we have a high demand in the PPWR for reusable packaging. At the moment, we have a discussion whether we stay with 100% reuse quota for certain packaging. At least there's often 40%, but there's still a reuse requirement for many kinds of packaging types. For example, the above ones, you mainly will have to look for reusable packaging. There are certain conditions where you don't have to, but most of them you will have to. So you will have to look at whether you can use barrels and canisters in a single-use way, or you have to do it in a reuse way. And that leads to the question, who is going to collect them, to clean them, and to make sure that they are properly cleaned. And we are also, we have a lot of standards which say food packaging or food contact packaging should not be mixed up with non-food. We often see that, for example, plastic granulates are transported, and afterwards we have some raw material for food, and then you find some plastic particles in your food, and then you have a recall, which will probably cost you a couple of $100 million, and then we find out it's not in your production, it's in your delivery, it's in your supply chain. So if we have to move to reusable packaging, we have to make sure that we are using the right containers and that we are cleaning them properly and that we are transporting. You also have to declare that how many times you handled reusable packaging and that you have to track it digitally. So it's not only a question of having a barrel which you can use a couple of times, you have to prove it. And you probably have to put a QR code or whatsoever code on it to prove how many times it has been moving in the loops. And the lower ones, also transport packaging, are often packaging which is more concerned regarding recyclability, recycled content, headspace, so that you have to make sure you're not overpacking too much volume inside, empty space. So these are the rather the foil and flexible packaging. And this is something I had 35 years ago. This could also replace a normal cardboard. Cardboard is exempt from reuse, but if you have a case like this, which can also be automated in your production line, and after 4 to 5 loops, often you have a return of a cost saving instead of using all time the single-use cardboard. So if you have the option to use this one instead of a cardboard, it might be that you have not only CO2 savings, but also cost saving. And it can already be tracked, so you can see how often it has gone through the loops. Yeah, we're also partnering with ENFIT. It's an international organization of supply chain safety. And we just launched a new working group, which is the 360 reuse, where we also want to help companies to understand the requirements of reusable packaging in transport, but probably also in consumer packaging. And where we launched this working group together with other companies. So we're talking about design parameters, how do the packaging has to be designed so it can be properly cleaned and hygienically cleaned for all the various standards. The compatibility rules from primary to secondary packaging, so everything fits together. The cleaning by design, so if you have any material, any products which are a bit oily, greasy, etc., you probably want to make sure that this packaging is properly cleaned and that you're not transporting the grease and the oil to the next step. So also this has to be designed so it can be cleaned properly. Inspection, if you have any damage in the packaging, sometimes might be the case, sometimes might be needed. Probably not in your business, but definitely anything which goes into canisters where you have any liquids or chemicals or whatsoever, you want to make sure that your packaging is not leaking. Also the digital identity and tracking is a topic in the working group, and also the audits and the ENFIT compliance, so packaging standards, hygienic tracking. In food, you often have halal, kosher, and other kinds of ethno requirements for the cleaning, and so all this is covered here by this working group. So if you want to become part of this working group and work on your reusable packaging for the future, you're highly invited to join the group. We have a couple of experts from various fields like tracking, like cleaning. Cleaning inspection is also a cleaning inspection of packaging, and yes, we are packaging consultants, as I said. Then I want to give you a hint for how you can make your packaging compliant and how you can move forward to check your packaging. So first of all, it's checking your packaging. And the main topic is definitely the outbound. Everything you're sending out to your customers, to your other plants, whatsoever. But which is often forgotten is your inbound packaging. You're not responsible for the inbound packaging, but if we have a reuse requirement and you have a lot of inbound packaging, it might be that you have to handle this packaging for the next cleaning. And if you have 10 different types of barrels, you probably want to have only one type of barrel, because it increases your complexity with the packaging if you have too many different inbound packaging of different types and different formats and different sizes and whatsoever. So check both and probably speak with your suppliers about the inbound packaging so you can reduce the complexity. Then, of course, check your packaging and the requirements, for example, with our tool. Then analyze if you have to match with other national or international packaging regulation. Later on, do your status quo check. So where is your recyclability? Are you already using recycled content? Do you match with the minimization requirements, with the hazardous substances, and so on? And then create your own heat map, so you see immediately where you have to work on, where you're good, and where you still have some action to do. Prioritize where you want to work on, whether it's by volume, by profit and loss, or based on the heat map, where you see the red ones, these are the big ones I have to work on, and develop your strategy and your targets you want to achieve. And later on, often someone says it's the packaging department or it's the quality department. But finally, you will have to work on with the production, with the packaging, the regulation, the buying. So everyone will be concerned in the departments in your company, and it's not a one-man job. And then you have to define your target, your task force, and the people have to connect to become compliant. And as I said, compliance starts in August this year, so there's not so much time left. And finally, work on your packaging, and as I said, work on your communication, because you have to be compliant by September latest to do the right communication and the right labeling. So we also have some trial checks if you want to learn more, if you want to have a bit of consultancy, if you want to understand what you would have to do, if you go through and say, where are you, where is your recyclability, do you know anything about your hazardous substances, and so on. So we can do different kinds of checks, either 3 or 10 checks. And we can also do some workshops in different kinds of languages together with you, where we go through the PPWR, the requirements, what you have to do, and also to teach and train your departments how to work on the regulations. So this is from my side. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, if you have some specific questions about the PPWR, feel free to answer now. Or otherwise I will be here as well, and you can contact me and we can discuss some topics about PPWR and how you have to make sure that you are conform from August this year, so not much time left, as I said. Thank you very much.